لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعليهم أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم. I welcome you back to our course on Safinat al-Naja, or the ship of salvation. And of course, this is a text in Shafi'i fiqh written by Imam al-Hadrami and intended to be a beginner's guide through ibadat. This is actually the last lesson. I didn't realize that this was the last lesson in the kitab because the kitab that we're using in English, or the translation I should say, it actually has some extra notes on Hajj and Umrah, but those notes don't actually form part of the original text. In fact, these notes also don't form part of the original text, but the original text is basically generally printed with additional notes pertaining to fasting and janaiz and zakah. However, those notes are not inclusive of notes on Hajj and Umrah. So I would suggest that in order to cover Hajj and Umrah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that you also take our other course on beginner Shafi'i fiqh. And if memory serves correctly, I think that would be on the Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad Matn al-Ghaya wa Taqreeb, right? It's probably on Matn al-Ghaya wa Taqreeb. And then if you've completed that already, then of course you have the Reliance of the Traveler, which is also available, bi'idhnillah. So to commence from where we left off, we have started on the chapter on fasting, Kitab al-Siyam, and we continue on that note, inshallah. We will cover here in making up fasts, what nullifies the fasts, and breaking the fast in Ramadan. تمام. So let us commence. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا الله بعلومه وعلومكم آمين. فصل فيما يوجب القضاء والكفارة. A chapter regarding what necessitates qada, making up fast, والكفارة, as well as the expiation. ويجب مع القضاء للصوم الكفارة العظمى والتعزير على من أفسد صومه في رمضان يوما كاملا بجماع تام آثم به للصوم. Excuse me. So ما يوجب القضاء والإمساك, what necessitates making up for the fast, and imsak, and continuing to fast regardless. ويجب مع القضاء, what is wajib along with qada, along with making up the fast. Al-imsaku is to continue to make imsak. Imsak basically means abstinence. To practice abstinence means to stay away from those things that would generally break one's fast. But of course, you've already broken the fast in a shara'i sense, yet abstinence remains necessary. للصوم في ستة مواضع, and this will apply in 6 separate cases. الأول في رمضان لا في غيره على معتد بفطره. The first applies to a fast in the month of Ramadan, not outside. على معتد بفطره, for anyone who breaks their fast by way of transgression, meaning they deliberately break their fast. This is not because of an excuse. So if somebody does that in the month of Ramadan, they have to continue fasting after that. So let's say the person ate and they have no intention of stopping, but then they are overcome with regret and remorse, and they make tawbah for what they've done. But now they think, well, I've broken my fast already. Now I can continue eating and just start afresh from tomorrow. But this would be incorrect because they were transgressive in their action. Therefore, they have to continue as though they are fasting, even though the reward is already ruined. So that's the first condition, or the first situation. وَالثَّانِي عَلَى تَارِكِ النِّيَّةِ لَيْلًا فِي الْفَرْضِ, a person who omits to make the intention on the night before a fard fast. And just to put things into perspective, the intention here again is not what is recited or said, but rather an acute awareness of the fact that tomorrow is in fact a day of Ramadan and I'm going to fast. That would be the intention. But for a person who failed to do that, perhaps they didn't realize the next day was fasting, or they had no intention of fasting the next day, then that would be a failed intention or a lack of intention. والثالث على من تسحر ظانا بقاء الليل فبان خلافه. The third situation is a person who has suhoor thinking that it's still nighttime, and then afterwards it becomes apparent that it was not nighttime and that they were actually eating during the daytime. So let's say that Fajr is at 4:30 and they were under the assumption that Fajr is at 5. So at 4:45, they were still eating, thinking that they are having suhoor. Such a person, when they find out, they cannot say, well, I didn't know, so therefore my fast is valid. No, even though you didn't know, it became clear to you that you were eating during the daytime and therefore your fast is not valid, but you still need to withhold from eating. You still need to practice abstinence despite the invalidity of the fast. والرابع, the fourth situation, على من أفطر ظانا الغروب فبان خلافه. Similar to the last point, but this time it's a person who breaks their fast thinking that it's now Maghrib, so they can legitimately break their fast. However, thereafter they found out that when they were eating thinking that it was Maghrib, it was in fact not Maghrib yet, it was still daytime. So they would have to abstain from that which a fasting person would have to abstain from, but their fast would not be valid and they would have to pay in that day basically. والخامس على من بان له يوم 30 من شعبان. It would be a person who من بان له, it becomes clear to him يوم 30 on the day of the 30th of Sha'ban أنه من رمضان, that in fact it is the month of Ramadan, and he didn't know. So then when he finds out, he has to abstain from that which a fasting person must abstain from, but his fast would not count and he would have to repay the day. والسادس, the sixth situation, على من سبقه ماء المبالغة من مضمضة واستنشاق. The one who accidentally ingests excessive water because of rinsing the mouth or the nose during ablution or the like during the fasting state. So if one takes an ablution and uses an average amount of water or a little bit of water, or moderate usage in other words, and then accidentally ingest water, this would not invalidate one's fast. But a person who is excessive and then as a result of their excessiveness, they ingest some water, this would invalidate their fast, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So there's a section here that we should read that's not explicitly mentioned in the Arabic text. Major kaffara or expiation and specified punishments are compulsory together with making up the fast for he who breaks his fast of Ramadan a complete day by having complete intercourse in which he becomes a sinner for his fast. There are 6 situations in which it is compulsory for one to abstain from things which break the fast and also necessitate the making up of that fast later. Okay, so this section actually was from the previous slide. It was this section here. فيما يوجب القضاء والكفارة. This section explains what necessitates you making up the fast, but you must also give an expiation. To clarify, it's a wajib to make up the fast and give the expiation, the great expiation, and face capital punishment for anyone who breaks their fast deliberately during the month of Ramadan and breaks an entire day as a result of sexual intimacy, a complete act of sexual intimacy, so this penetration, which is sinful, and they break their fast with it. So they not only have to make up that fast, but they also have to give the expiation. So what is the expiation? Footnote number 10 explains the legal occasion of the offense is the particular day of fasting, so that if it were committed on 2 separate days, 2 separate expiations would be necessary. Though if it were committed twice in one day, there would be only one expiation. The expiation consists of freeing a sound Muslim slave, if there is slavery of course, or if not possible, then to fast the days of 2 consecutive months. So that's 60 days consecutively. If this is not possible, let's say the person cannot manage this physically, they'll become too weak, or there's some other reason, a vow or something of the sort that prevents them from fasting, then to fast the days of 2 consecutive months. Sorry, if this is not possible, then the expiation is to feed 60 poor persons, 509 grams of food to each poor person. Basically, 750 grams is a safer calculation. That's a fidya to 60 people. If one is unable to do this, the expiation remains as an unperformed obligation upon the person concerned, meaning that when he does become able to fulfill the expiation in one of those mentioned ways, then he still has to do so. The woman with whom intercourse is performed is not obliged to expiate it. Tamam. So that's the first section. The second section discussed when it is wajib to make qada, so it's necessary, it's compulsory to make up for the fasting day, as well as to abstain from those things that would normally break the fast for the rest of the day. We've explained the 6 situations. Just looking at the notes now. Number 1, breaking his fast with a wrong act from his side in the month of Ramadan only. Footnote number 12 explains, like a person who is intoxicated from the night until the morning of Ramadan, it is binding for him to abstain from things which break the fast and also to recover that fast later. Then note number 2, not footnote, but note number 2 says, upon one who omits the intention at night for the fard fast, I've explained that and what exactly that means. There's no footnote there. Number 3, upon one who has sahur, the meal before dawn, thinking that the night still remains, but it was not so. We've explained that as well. Number 4, upon one who breaks the fast thinking that the sun has set, but it was not so. Footnote number 13 explains, it is best to hasten breaking the fast when one is certain that the sun has set. Then we move on to note number 5, upon one who has reckoned the 30th of Sha'ban to be the 1st of Ramadan, obviously by accident, and we've explained that. Number 6, upon one who was excessive in gargling and putting water into the nostrils to such an extent that the water goes down the throat. That is, footnote number 14, if some water slips down when a lot has not been used, it does not break the fast. And we've explained that as well. Now we move on to the next section. It says, Faslun fi ma yubtilu sawma, a chapter regarding what nullifies the fast. Yabtulu sawmu bi riddatin wa haydin wa nifasin wa wiladatin wa jununin walau lahdatan bi ighma'in wa sukrin ta'adda bihi in amma jami'an nahari. This section deals with fasting is nullified with apostasy, somebody becoming murtad, menstruation, postnatal bleeding or postpartum bleeding, childbirth, as well as a moment of insanity. So insanity walau lahdha, even for a moment. Wabi ighma'in, somebody becoming unconscious, right? Wasukrin, as well as somebody who is intoxicated as a result of unlawful intoxicants. Ta'adda bi, so that's unlawful. In amma jami'an nahar, if these last 2 cases, the unconsciousness and the intoxicated person, if those cases last jami'an nahar, for the entire duration of the day. So those are situations that would nullify the fast. It would immediately cause the fast to be null and void. Again, irtidad or ridda, right? Hayd, nifas, if a lady falls out, if she gets a menstrual cycle, or she gave birth, or there's postpartum bleeding, all of those instances we're familiar with. Ridda is also quite obvious. So madness is that if a person loses their mind, even for a moment, that would nullify their fast, even if they regain their sanity immediately thereafter. Unconsciousness, as well as being knocked out through unlawful intoxication, this would not nullify the fast unless the person is in such a state for the entire day, according to the text here. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam. We move on. Faslun fi hukm al-iftar fi Ramadan. A chapter regarding the ruling of breaking one's fast during the month of Ramadan. Al-iftaru fi Ramadan arba'atu anwa'. Breaking one's fast in the month of Ramadan are of 4 types. Wajibun kama fil ha'idhi wan nufasa. There's the obligatory type. So when is it obligatory or wajib to break the fast? Like a woman who experiences hayd and postnatal bleeding. Then there is jaizun, when fasting or when breaking the fast is actually permissible. Kama fil musafiri wal maridi, as is the case with a traveler or a person who is ill. They may break the fast, it is permissible, it is not necessary for them to do so. Wala kama fil majnoon. And then an interesting sentence, it says wala as in wala wajib, wala as in wala jaiz. So that which is neither compulsory nor permissible, kama fil majnoon, as is the case of a person who loses their mind. So just to reiterate, that which is neither wajib nor permissible, like insanity. طيب, then we move on. ومحرم, the unlawful type of breaking one's fast. كمن أخر قضاء رمضان, like the person who delays making up their days, the missed days of the month of Ramadan. مع تمكنه, while being able to, in other words, while being able to make it up earlier. حتى ضاق الوقت عنه, until such a time where the waqt, the time period, is constricted, so there wouldn't be enough time. So let's say you owe 10 days, right? You owe 10 missed days, and you only start making up those missed days just out of pure laziness and procrastination. You do that 10 days before the month of Ramadan. So now you can't break those fasts at all because there wouldn't be enough days to make them up at a different stage. So these are the cases where people break their fast and the different rulings that apply to it. So let's read over that last one again. Haram, like one who delays the making up of Ramadan despite having the capability to do so until the time does not permit it. The footnote reads, someone obliged to make up some fast days of Ramadan is recommended to do so consecutively and immediately, meaning after Ramadan. It is not permissible for a person with some unperformed fast days of Ramadan to delay making them up until the next Ramadan unless there is an excuse for delay, and Allah knows best. We move on, inshallah. ما يترتب على الإفطار, what is built upon breaking the fast fi Ramadan, during the month of Ramadan. In other words, what are the implications, the consequences, etc. وأقسام الإفطار أربعة أيضا, and here the types of breaking one's fast is also 4. أولها, the first, ما يلزم فيه القضاء والفدية وهو 2. The first type is that which necessitates making up the fast day as well as giving the penalty, which is the 750 grams of staple food to the underprivileged. There's 2 situations in which you have to do both. The first, al-iftaru li khawfin ala ghayrihi. It is breaking the fast for fear of another. والثاني, and the second is al-iftaru ma'a تأخير قضاء مع إمكانه حتى يأتي رمضان آخر. Breaking the fast while the person has delayed making up their fast, having had the ability to do so earlier, and they procrastinated to such an extent until the next Ramadan comes. So those instances both require a qada as well as a fidya. Let's clarify. The types of breaking the fast are 4. The things that make qada and fidya wajib are 2. Breaking the fast due to the fear of harm for others. So let's look at that footnote there. We've already spoken about the fidya. That's point number 16. We move on from there. Point number 17 says a woman who is breastfeeding a baby or is pregnant and apprehends harm to herself or her child, she may omit the fast and make it up later. Though if she omits it because of fear of harm for the child alone, not for herself, then she must give the fidya, again 750 grams of food, staple food. I know it says 509 there, I've explained this before. In charity for each day missed as an expiation in addition to making up each day. So again, this is very simple. If a woman is pregnant or she is breastfeeding, Now, there's nothing that says she has to break a fast. If she feels up to it, if she feels as though she's strong enough to fast, then she absolutely may do so. Again, here I would advise consulting a Muslim professional who can give you solid medical advice before you make this decision unilaterally. And also consult your husband or the father as well. Now, in relation to this situation, if the lady decides or she's advised that it's best for you to break your fast, then based on what is she making this decision? If she's making the decision because she fears for herself, if she's making this decision because she fears for herself or she fears for her child and herself, then in that case, she will only make qada. But if she's making this decision because she fears for her child alone, she doesn't worry about herself at all. She feels, I'm strong enough, I can manage to fast, but I'm worried that I may do some harm to the child, either through not having enough milk or not being able to, nourish the child while the child is in my womb. Then in that case, she has to pay the fidya and make up the day. So let's read the note again, considering that explanation. A woman who is breastfeeding a baby or is pregnant and apprehends harm to herself or her child may omit the fast and make it up later. Though if she omits it because of fear of harm for the child alone, not for herself, then she must give the fidya and make up the day. And Allah knows best. That's point number 17. Now we move on. So those were the first, that was the first situation. The second situation is breaking the fast and thereafter delaying to make up for it until the next Ramadan comes. And there you can see point number 18. So let's look at point number 18 from the next slide, inshallah. Point number 18 says, when making up, if a fast day is delayed until a second Ramadan comes, then one must pay an additional 509 grams to be paid for that day. In other words, an additional fidya. Again, when making up, if a fast day is delayed until a second Ramadan comes, then one must pay an additional fidya. So basically what this means is, let's say you missed out 10 days of fasting during the month of Ramadan. Now you owe those 10 days. Those 10 days, it is recommended to do immediately after the month of Ramadan. You are allowed to delay it, but you have to do those 10 days before the next Ramadan comes. If the next Ramadan comes and you still have not done those days, and there was no excuse that allowed you to do this for the entire period, then when that Ramadan leaves, you have to make up those 10 days and give a fidya for each day that you failed to make up. So that's the ruling about pushing days ahead. There are other opinions in other madhahib. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because there are certain situations in which people, they neglectfully missed fast, and now they made tawbah, and now they've got many, many years, for example, and they didn't know about this particular ruling. And then in their case, I would say, rather adopt another madhab in this regard, lest it be too difficult for you to follow through with actually making things right in your life, and Allah knows best. Now we move on to the second type of breaking the fast, which is والثاني الإفطار مع تأخير قضاء مع إمكانه حتى يأتي رمضان آخر. I've already done this one actually. We go to ثانيها, as in the second of the four situations of the أقسام. ما يلزم فيه القضاء دون الفدية وهو يكثر كمغمى عليه. That which necessitates making up the fast day, but not the fidya, not the ransom. وَهُوَ يَكْثُرُ, and this is when it is a lot. Those for which qada is compulsory, but not the fidya, like one who is unconscious. كَمُغْمَى عَلَيْهِ. So this category, there's a lot of examples, it says. And then he says كَمُغْمَى عَلَيْهِ, but also he mentions like the one who is unconscious. The reason why this category is abundant is basically because what this category is saying is when you break your fast, but you don't need to pay a fidya, but you must still make up that day. This is for somebody who eats, unlawfully during the month of Ramadan, or they drink, or they smoke, or they become unconscious. All of these cases, so they break their fast, they have to make up for that day, but they don't need to give a fidya. As opposed to the Hanafi school, where they would have to give the kafara as well, the kafara that we spoke about in terms of 60 days. But you have to consult the Hanafi madhab for the specifics of that particular ruling. So to repeat, for those which qada is compulsory but not the fidya, like one who is unconscious. And then number 3, meaning thalithuha, sorry about that. Thalithuha, why is that not included here? Oh, there we go. It's on top. وثالثها, we're over here now. ما يلزم فيه الفدية دون القضاء. That which necessitates the person must give a fidya, so they must pay the 750 grams of staple food. دون القضاء, but they don't have to make up the day. وهو شيخ كبير. This would be an elderly person who simply cannot fast any longer, they are too frail, or a person with a chronic illness, right, where they can never fast. So, for example, somebody that has extreme diabetes or something similar, where fasting would always be harmful to them. So they would pay a fidya for every day because they're not going to fast, and they would never be able to make up those fasting days either. وَرَابِعُهَا, the fourth of the 4 categories are la wala, meaning not of the 2 previous types. So they neither need to give the fidya nor do they need to make qada. وَهُوَ الْمَجْنُونَ, this would be a person who is insane. الَّذِي لَمْ يَتَعَدَّ بِجُنُونِهِ, a person whose insanity is not as a consequence of their own violation of law. So for example, somebody who loses the mind on account of them taking narcotics or the like, that would still necessitate that they need to pay the fidya. But a person who is insane as a result of natural causes, such a person would not need to pay the day nor pay the fidya, and Allah knows best. So those are the notes there. Now we get to the last notes. This is فيما يصل إلى الجوف ولا يفطر الذي لا يفطر مما يصل إلى الجوف 7 أفراد. This section deals with that which reaches the inner cavity, ولا يفطر, but it does not break the fast. الذي لا يفطر, that which does not break the fast, مما يصل إلى الجوف, but reaches the inside cavity, 7 أفراد. There are 7 types. ما يصل إلى الجوف بنسيان, that which gets into the body by way of forgetfulness, أو جهل, or ignorance, أو إكراه, or coercion. In other words, when somebody is coerced to eat something by gunpoint or the like. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Then وَبِجَرَيَانِ رِيقٍ بِمَا بَيْنَ أَسْنَانِهِ, or when saliva carries food that was stuck between one's teeth. وَقَدْ عَجَزَ عَنْ مَجِّهِ, and the person was unable to expectorate it. لِعُذْرِهِ, for some excuse, for some reason. وَمَا وَصَّلَ إِلَى الْجَوْفِ, and that which reaches the inner cavity. وَكَانَ غُبَارَ طَرِيقٍ, and it was in fact, there was in fact some dust of the road. So there was basically dust in the air, and as a result the person swallowed it, or it entered into his lungs or cavity. That would not break the fast. وما وصل إليه وكان غربلة دقيق, and that which also gets into the cavity, but it's like the dust of flour, for example. أو ذبابا طائرا, or a fly that flew past and it entered into the mouth and into the inner cavity. They swallowed a fly. أو نحوه, or the like of it, a mosquito or moth, etc. والله أعلم بالصواب, and Allah knows best with what is the most correct. And then he ends off the kitab by saying نسأل الله الكريم بجاه نبيه الوسيم أن يخرجني من الدنيا مسلما ووالدي وأحبائي ومن إلي انتمى وأن يغفر لي ولهم مقحمات ولمما. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله عبد المطلب بن هاشم بن عبد مناف رسول الله إلى كافة الخلق رسول الملاحم حبيب الله الفاتح الخاتم وآله وصحبه أجمعين Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And that brings us to the end of the official Arabic of the Kitab. Let's explain that section and we conclude on that note. Section: the things which by reaching the stomach do not break the fast. There are 7. 1 to 3, that which reaches the body cavity out of forgetfulness, ignorance, or force. So that's points 1 to 3. Number 4, the mixing of saliva with what is between the teeth, and he is unable to discharge it. He is therefore excused. Number 5, the dust of the road which reaches to the body cavity. And number 6 and 7, the dust of sifted flour or flies, etc., which reach the body cavity. Now, and then footnote number 20 just adds through an open passageway. Number 21 says the deliberate intake of anything besides air or saliva into the body cavity breaks the fast. So if you deliberately inhale steam, smoke, etc. Number 22, food, etc., provided this is after having cleaned between them after eating by using a toothpick or the like between them. So you're not excused because you ate and you just left all the food in your mouth and then it accidentally went down. No, you have to actually try your best, inshallah. So to summarize the lesson, we dealt with making up fasts, we dealt with what nullifies the fasts, and we dealt with breaking the fast in Ramadan. And that concludes the discussion bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And it also concludes this course, this beginner course in Shafi'i jurisprudence. Again, I welcome you to join us for a more advanced course bi'idhnillah in the form of the reliance of the traveler. We have completed, I think, the mu'amalat section of that course is almost completed as well. But we have completed the ibadat section, which means that all of the lessons are already available for you. So sign up to register for that course bi'idhnillahi ta'ala at SeekersGuidance.org. And do consider registering for some of our other courses to make sure we are always improving ourselves and increasing in beneficial knowledge bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And I would also recommend that for the stunning work that this organization does, bringing knowledge to those who seek it around the world, who don't have access to traditional scholarship, I would encourage you, if you can, to kindly donate towards this noble cause. May Allah reward you for every harf, for every person who benefits, for every good action that is as a result of the knowledge that is shared on this platform. Until next time, inshallah, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad, subhanallahi wa bihamdi, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.